So I want this top part here and then the bottom part down there. Does that make sense? Not just random, but you can like really stick it in there. That's a big shovel. And then everybody else, I want you to observe what we're seeing as we go down. Yes, and stack that here.
The color's changing.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so when I'm delineating a wetland, hit some rocks. Yep, just right there. Keep going, see if you can go deeper. So sometimes when I'm doing restoration projects, the first thing I have to do is figure out, is it a wetland or not? And there are 3 pillars that make a system a wetland. It is hydrology. So do you see any hydrology present here?
Carlos, get over here.
Yeah.
How big is the rock?
You know.
Is that where we're stopping?
I think so.
Okay, that's fine. If you hit bedrock, that's no problem. So we got 3 pillars. We need hydrology. Do we see any hydrology present?
The water.
Turns out there's water right there. That's really easy. Another sign that works for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who's the regulatory body for wetlands, is mud cracking, which is this. So when we have an inundated surface and then the water's removed, we get these formations called mud cracking. Then I need to have hydrophytic vegetation, which is vegetation that's adapted to live in a fully saturated condition. So how can water or a plant move oxygen? Because remember, in water, oxygen diffuses about 1,000 times slower than in air. So it's present in the water, but it's hard to get to, especially in like systems like this where it's really calm. So how might a plant get water down to its roots? Or sorry, air.
Air?
Yeah, oxygen. O2, not NO2. Which would be like nitrous dioxide.
They take the sun. They heat up the water. The air comes out, and then it's in the plant.
Is there oxygen in the rocks?
No.
Isn't air like underground already, like some?
But remember, this is an anaerobic environment. So there's no oxygen.
Oh.
I don't know how they're living.
It's crazy. They basically have little snorkels, and they will actually pump oxygen down from their leaves to their roots. So we need this specifically adapted wetland plants, and then we need hydric soils, and there are a lot of different hydric soils. But it basically means that it's been saturated for so long that it's undergone a chemical reaction. So when I look at this, tell me some observations that you make as I move from the top of my soil column to the bottom.
Top is drier.
Top's drier. Yeah, come take some fingers of it and feel it. Break it up. Put your hands dirty. There you go. Come on.
Should I like?
Yeah, just grab it. Just grab it.
I feel this bad boy.
It feels like.
This one's kind of
Play-Doh.
wet.
It feels like Play-Doh. Yeah. So probably a little bit of clay.
Yeah.
Yeah, does it feel like slimy in between your fingers?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now feel pass. Everybody come and grab some of this or the peat. So what happens to the color?
It's dark.
Yep, gets dark. And what else do you see in there?
Roots.
Roots, what else? And what's this?
Trees.
Yeah, it's just like a twig. How old do you think this is?
Not that old.
10 years old.
My guess
Thinking like a year.
is that it's probably close to 500 to maybe 1,000 years old.
What the heck?
Well preserved, yeah.
So the accumulation rate of a fen is about an inch for every 100 years. And we're down like 6 inches, 7 inches. So we're somewhere around 700 years probably.
At
Which
the
is-
bottom of it?
Yeah, just here. So most of these fens formed around 8,000 years ago.
So that soil was there before we were, like, in America.
You're talking about white people?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were people here that were probably existing while this was forming.
Well before, yeah.
Yeah, there were definitely indigenous folks living in these systems.
Since this used to be like underwater,
Yeah.
does that like change the way it like? Is there like has it? Since it's just now drying out, did it change the soil underneath, or has it always looked like that even underwater?
Even underwater, it looked like this. So what's changed is this.
Okay.
And this actually probably looked like that pretty recently. And this is just drying out massively right now. And what's happening is, what makes this black?
No oxygen.
No oxygen, and why is it black? What element makes this black? What's all life forms, what's their base element?
H2O.
CO2.
You're close, you're not.
Carbon.
Carbon, yeah. It's carbon, right? And so when we expose it to the atmosphere, it undergoes another chemical reaction and starts off-gassing carbon. So if we want to like not increase the amount of carbon in our atmosphere, preserving these systems is the most important thing we can do. Because they are the largest carbon sink, but they can turn into a carbon source in a day. So this site is really important to me because there's a lot of carbon sitting in this right now. And if we let it deteriorate and erode away, we're gonna lose all that carbon that probably took, a couple thousand years to sequester. So pretty important.
What could we use the carbon for?
We just want to keep it in the ground.
Carbon capture.
Yeah. Well, so right now what we're seeing is a large increase in CO2 in our atmosphere, right? And that has an impact on our ecosystems, on our water, on our agriculture and everything. So anything that we can do to reduce the amount of carbon in our atmosphere is positive. So we want carbon sinks. We want things to stay there. So one of the things I have to do to determine if it's a wetland or not, again, is those soils. And I use this book here. And it's really like a painter's book, but they rebrand it and they put these like environmental photos on it, and then they sell it for twice as much and make me pay more, which is really lame. But as part of it, I have to tell the Corps, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, well, what type of soil is it? And to start, I need to figure out its color and chroma. And so I do this a lot, so I kind of have an idea of where I'm going to end up. I'm going to end up at this 10YR. And see how black that is? So I pop this out, and I put it over, and I say, oh, does that look right? And that looks pretty darn good. And that's about as dark as I can get. Maybe I have a slightly more dark, like maybe this 2.5Y. Is that a warning?
That's 5 minutes, yeah.
Like maybe it could be that, but honestly, both of these will yield me a very similar result in my worksheets. Like that would work too. So I have to take these out. I'd probably call it a 10YR 2-1.
What if you have variations in like here we have like a more like charcoaly looking, like gray, yeah.
Yep.
So what if you have variations? Do you just do like the most common color you see then?
You have to do a full profile.
Full profile. Okay, right,
Yep.
right.
So I would say, okay, the first 3 inches are something else, right? Like maybe it's like a 4.4, something like that. And so I have a worksheet where I have to go down and say, okay, these top inches are this, the next 10 are this, and then I get into, this is called glade. This is a glade soil. So feel this one, somebody.
Who's more?
Yeah.
This one's like hard.
Yeah.
You can like
What's
make ceramics out of it.
Exactly. What is
Clay.
It's clay.
Take it back to art
Exactly.
class.
Yeah.
What's clay? No.
Clay is clay.
Clay is
It's a type, yeah.
It's
Is it made
It's
out of
made
organics or
underwater.
rocks?
organics.
Rocks.
Frick.
Just throwing out guesses over here. Yeah, exactly. So clay could be any type of rock,
Yeah, I do too.
but it's a size. So as we go down in size, we have sand, which is bigger, silt, which is smaller, clay, which is the smallest, and then we have like gravel, cobble, boulder above all that. And it makes these really nice materials that, for eons, people have made pots and bowls and stuff out of from clay.
So when they heat it kind of like in a furnace, would it still stay this color, or would it turn into like a?
Like a
It's
little
white.
It might change color a little bit, and then oftentimes people put glazes on them, So as we move down, we change again, right? So we go from this dried out peat to really good peat to clay. And that clay forms because underneath here, like if I were to get down a little deep, were you trying to dig? Yeah. If I were to get down a little deeper, we might be able to see that boundary, which Sean did a good job. And I don't quite see it. Oh, there it is. So you can see it here.
Let's see.
And I bet you what happens, so come on over here. Can you see that boundary on this side? It goes from like black to gray.
Mm-hmm.
So if we let this hole sit open, I bet it'll fill the water to there. And when that water is covering it, it undergoes reduction. Have you guys learned about oxidation and reduction yet? It's okay. Oxidation is a gain of an electron. Oil rig. Oxidation is a loss of an electron. Reduction is gain. So like think about like rusting. Rusting is oxidation, and it breaks down because it's losing those electrons. Same thing's happening here, but the opposite. It's actually reducing. So it's gaining electrons, but things are leaching out because it's permanently saturated. So there's all these different soils, and we use them to kind of identify what different systems we have. And here we've got a really nice abandoned peatland, and it would be excellent to restore it. And I think we could do a good job and make a little pond over here for folks, and then restore this area, because all of that you see is peat. It's a lot of good stuff that we'd love to keep in these systems. Any questions?